What's up, man? Comments and criticisms here, talking about accusations against MGTOW. This accusation is misogyny. You are a misogynist. A misogynist is a person who dislikes or despises, is prejudiced against women. The dislike or the despising of woman is what characterizes misogyny. It means against women. But whether or not misogyny is good or bad, or acceptable or unacceptable, comes down to prejudice. And prejudice means that it is a preconceived notion or an assumption that is not based on experience or actuality, reality, research, proper data. It's just people being dicks. Well, let's look at some other things that people dislike. Let's take, for example, misandry. Not considered such a big deal. Not many people getting their panties in a twist over that in popular culture. Misanthropy, that's another one. People who hate both men and women. Humanity in general. There's a lot of misanthropes out there. And although it's not a hugely popular thing, it's not that socially unacceptable. Yeah. Let's take, for example, in New Zealand here, there's lots of possums. They're considered a pest. Well, no one goes around saying, you're a Miss Possumist. You hate possums. You dislike possums. You're prejudiced against possums. Although I don't necessarily advocate killing all those possums, because I believe that if we're really going to eradicate pests, then we need to take a look at ourselves, the greatest pest on the planet, human beings, Homo sapiens. Anyway, the point here is that it's not a crime to dislike something, okay? Same with women. It's not a crime to dislike women. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It is bad to be prejudiced. That is to have an opinion against women that is unjustified, that is unfounded, or that's not very well justified. And in the case of MGTOW, I would say that if MGTOW are misogynists, if they're disliking women, then they're probably the most justified. If you look at the data that's being presented, the reasons that are being presented, it's very well justified. I would not say that it is on the whole prejudiced. So forgive me for being a bit semantical here, but I would say that the prejudiced dislike of women could be called chauvinism, which is more intrinsically prejudiced, whereas misogyny could be prejudiced or justified, not necessarily bad. Let me give an example. I'd say if I said that I dislike women because women are weaker than men, I think that would be prejudiced. It would not be very well reasoned or justified. That would be a prejudiced misogyny, chauvinism, kind of misogyny, right? It would be bad. Now let's say if I took female firefighters. If I said that I am misogynist, I dislike women because they are allowed to become firefighters with a lower entry standard than men, because on the whole they are weaker, then I guess I could be called a misogynist. I dislike women for that fact. I dislike that fact more specifically. But that would be justified misogyny. And see, there are many other cases like that of the elevation of women, whether it be elevation through beauty or hyper-agency. Schopenhauer calls it the veneration of woman. Although it might not be specifically coming from women, it might be coming from the state or our culture. What that produces is a entitlement syndrome in women. And whether or not that's biological or socially constructed, that does become a characteristic of women. And I can say that I dislike or even despise that characteristic. I feel I am justified, so it would not be prejudiced. It would be justified misogyny. So when you break it down, it's really rather simple. There's nothing wrong with saying, I like this, or I don't like this. Whether it be a gender of people, animals, plants, foods, different races, different ethnicities, different drinks or beverages, it's okay. It can be okay to like or dislike. The important factor is whether or not it is justified, it is rationalized, it is reasoned out, it is logical, it is backed up by data. Of course, being misogynist, like being a misanthrope or misandrous or speciesist or racist, is at the end of the day an attitude, and what decisions you make based on that is a different matter, I think. For example, there are plenty of misanthropes who don't like human beings, but those misanthropes don't usually feel that it's a good idea to murder people. And there's a lot of misandrists out there, but they don't necessarily think that men should be castrated, although maybe some of them do. And I might be misogynist, and I feel justified in that. I don't think that women should be raped, or there should be some negative repercussion like that based off that fact. Another point I'd like to raise in terms of theory versus practice, or what people think versus what people do, is that there are those people who say nice things but are actually doing harm. For example, you look at humane meat, you say, oh, this is very nice, isn't it? They say, this is good, but really what they're doing is ultimately it's harmful. It's killing animals. I think that's bad. And so you can find people who present themselves in a nice fluffy way. Oh, it's a good thing, like feminism. Oh, we're going to give women the vote, we're going to give women the jobs, we're going to get rid of the wage gap, and so on and so on and so forth. But actually, we look at what's actually happening in society. The feminization of society is actually quite nasty in many cases. Divorce courts, family court would be an example that I could give. But what I'm saying here is, like, a criticism, a positive criticism can be empowering. It can be used for good. So a lot of these MGTOW will criticize women and say, look, these things, they're bad. These are bad aspects of women. And it would be great if we could improve them. Everyone, the whole society could benefit. Women would benefit, men would benefit, children would benefit, everyone would benefit. If that happens, things get better. That's a good thing. It's just like saying, oh, you hate children, you don't want to give the children unlimited candy, right? Like certain people say, unlimited candy. Well, it's actually good for the kids to have a bit of discipline. They'll turn into good, mature adults. It's like a bit of medicine, right? It tastes nasty, but it's good. I think my final point is going to be, it's about the power of words, buzzwords. You know, like feminists love to bash out this word, you know, misogyny and other words like that. And what they're trying to say is that if you dislike women, no matter what, whether it's justified or not or what have you, that is bad. You just can't dislike, despise, or be strongly against women, their attitude, their mindset, their activities. That is just unacceptable. And what I'm saying here is that really that word shouldn't have that power. Okay, there needs to be a distinction between justified and unjustified views, prejudiced and unprejudiced views. And this is something that's very simple, people can understand. We apply this in many aspects of life. Why isn't it commonly applied in terms of misogyny? So if you get called a misogynist for your views, the only thing really I would say you need to do to respond to that is to ask yourself, am I simply hating? Am I prejudiced? You know, is this some sort of emotional thing for me? It's completely illogical. Or are you actually justified in what you're saying? Is it based on an actual occurrence?